everybody, and welcome to this episode of What's Your Random? I spoke with Steve Urena today. He is the writer and creator of Slowpokes, a Sloth-Horror Comedy Comic Book, going on into its final days as a Kickstarter. He has 4 more days left, culminating with a release of the digital copy of his comic book on Halloween 2020. He's going to send out the swag and the physical copies of the comic book on that date. And I had a really good time speaking with him. I apologize. My microphone was not cooperating at that point in time, so the audio isn't as crisp and clear as we would have hoped. But nonetheless, I really enjoyed speaking with him. He's a really cool guy and very motivating, very positive, and very, very supportive of any and all people out there who are in pursuit of their random. So without further ado, my conversation with Steve Urena.
How's that? Yeah, good. Okay, finally.
It's funny too, without the voice, like that could be like a dramatic movie or something like. Exactly.
It's like, and I invited you to join me.
Exactly. That's your short film. That'll win at the Cannes Film Awards this year.
Very dramatic, especially during these post-COVID times when a lot of our communication relies on this stuff working.
Me and my girlfriend were watching, I guess there was like a show that they filmed within quarantine on Netflix. And to me, it's awful because I'm like, you can't, it's clearly like they're trying to do camera tricks. So you're like, you could see that they're there, but they're not. And it's just like, what do you think about that? And there's like a long delay. Like, and I'm like, I hope this is not what movies are going to be like going forward.
And on the flip side, when I watch like sitcoms that were filmed before this mess, it's awkward to see people so close without.
Oh yeah, you're like, where's the fucking mask, dude? Put that on.
Oh my God, I'm feeling like a hypochondriac right now. Get me out of this situation.
It's terrible because that's what this is. This is how it's going to be, I guess, for the future going forward, at least for a little
foreseeable, while. Yeah. I mean, they say every 100 years, right? We get a pandemic, so this is just dealing with it in a new age. Yeah.
It had to be our age, right? It can't be another.
I know, right? Well, I plan on living 100 years old.
I want to clock out at like 70. Like I can't be old. I don't want to do that.
I don't know, man. It seems like you have a good thing going for you right now. You might be able to.
I got lucky. Oh yeah, by then it'll be Slowpoke 75. I'm gonna keep going, and I'll do the old man Logan like version of the Slowpokes.
I like it. Slowpokes attack a geriatric facility.
Oh yeah, they come to get the characters. Hey, it could happen. Yeah.
Or Slowpokes are our next plague somehow.
Yeah. Oh man, if I somehow predicted this, that'd be amazing. I mean, it'd be scary as hell. Like I would stay inside forever, but that would be good.
Well, nice to meet you, man. I see you before we finally got our technical issues worked out and started recording. You asked me where I'm from. I'm actually from not too far from where I understand you are. And you're in Connecticut?
Yes, I am in Norwalk, Connecticut.
Okay, so I'm originally from Port Chester, New York, right on the Connecticut
right there.
border.
It's such a small world with all these comic things. Like I was recently interviewed by Tad Galusha, who's an artist, and he's based out of Alaska. And he ended up going to school where my hometown was. And my hometown is Flanders, New Jersey, which is a very small town. So it's just a very small world. It's like, what? Like how do you know where this is?
All of those little things that like tie us together, the unseen threads.
It's crazy. It just meant to be, I guess. Awesome. So how do you like it over there?
Well, so I was born and raised there, and recently I moved down to Raleigh-Durham area in North Carolina.
Oh, in North Carolina. Yeah. Nice. At least that's probably a nice place to be stuck in quarantine because it's probably nice weather down there.
Yeah. It's been an adjustment.
You're like, no, it's not.
No, it is. I mean, the population density isn't quite as crazy as New York and the metropolitan area. And it's warmer. And I got down here right before COVID shit hit the fan. so to speak, right before I finished moving in right around January. So it's soon after.
When this COVID thing hit, like I was driving my girlfriend back to Connecticut and we saw a guy with like a hazmat suit, like walking his dog. And we were like, oh, that's too crazy. Like whatever, like that's not going to be what this is. And then it ended up being exactly, that guy had it right. I was kind of hoping for the dog to have a hazmat suit, but it didn't have one.
Shows how much he cares for his dog.
I guess so. He's like, oh, you try it. You test it out first. Let's take a look.
That's hilarious. So, the reason I invited you on today is trying to start a podcast, speak with creative folks about their endeavors as they're getting started in a new industry with their passion project, so to speak.
Awesome. I do love the name of this podcast. What's Your Random is such a good name for a podcast.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. And I'm a pretty random guy. And, to be amongst my first guests, your project is extremely random and right up my alley.
Yep. That's awesome.
It really jumped out at me literally and figuratively.
Cool.
The Slowpokes were like coming through the screen and just really grabbed my attention. I was like, oh man, I really need to try to speak with this guy. So I appreciate you coming on.
Awesome. So how did you find this? Did you find us through Kickstarter? Was it a website or anything? Or
through Kickstarter, yeah.
Okay,
and then
awesome.
I started sniffing around a little bit more. But I guess to get started, in case people are listening who don't know about your project, if you could give us the elevator pitch on what you're doing.
All right. So if I was doing an elevator pitch for you, Kevin, I would do sloths plus speed equals death. That's my elevator pitch. But basically in Slowpokes, which is the upcoming Kickstarter comic, the Sloth-Horror Comedy Comic of the season, which is coming out on Saturday if you pledge. It is, what if sloths become fast? What would happen? So to me, in my crazy brain, as you say, what's your random? They would become killing machines. Because if you looked at sloths, they always look like they're up to something. They have these crazy claws. And I just felt like if life made sloths fast, they would be killing machines. I feel like life made them slow to protect us as the human race from these sloths.
Beautifully said. Definitely also, piques my interest.
Every time I say it or every time I do the pitch, it's like, man, I'm sure people think I'm fucking crazy for this too.
I think most people have ideas that are just as crazy. They just might not be as willing to act on them.
I do wish for this project that I did get the pitch to like a publisher, because I would have loved to just been in the room and be like, yeah, no, or like, yeah, like, I don't know, like who brought this guy in here? Like, I wish I could have had that experience.
Did you try to bring it to fruition through other routes besides? So this is like self-published through Kickstarter, self-published. One of the modes of financing it right now. I did not go through any publishing or anything, just because I don't know anybody within any in the comic industry. For me, this is my first comic that I've done, and I do have contacts in other things, but just the comic industry, I just wasn't sure how to go about it. So I thought about it as like, all right, if I do get this made, if it does well, then that's a good thing. But if it doesn't do well, if nobody wants to buy it, then at least I have something for a portfolio. Because if I'm pitching to do comic work outside of what I do normally, what's going to stick out? Like, all right, here's a superhero story, or hey, this guy that wrote about sloths becoming fast and killing everybody. I feel like that's going to stand out, and I will at least get a meeting, I think. Right. Yeah, I think so. And I mean, the concept is like very horrifying, but also really funny, which is, I mean, the imagery you use is pretty graphic and gruesome, but at the same time, it is somehow at the same time balanced with a comedic edge.
So it is funny because yesterday I got my first negative comment about Slowpokes, about it's like, sloths are adorable. Like, how dare you make sloths, killing machines? Like, I don't like this idea. It's too bizarre. And I'm like, then I'm doing something right, because as long as somebody reacts to it, whether it's positive or negative, that means that's a good thing. But I just wanted to make sure that's my style of writing. I want a surprise. I want to make sure that people are on a ride whenever, if I'm writing something. And as long as they're having fun, that's all I care about.
And so when you were writing it, did you have have you drawn yourself? And when you were writing, did you have an idea of how it was going to be presented on page, or did your collaborators take full creative liberty in bringing your words to the page?
So I cannot draw for shit. Like I am, I cannot. That is not my strong suit. And it's funny because my mom was a fashion designer, so she could really draw. And then like my sister could draw, but like for me, like I would draw stuff and they'd be like, "Oh, that's great," but yeah, you know what I mean? Like, "Oh, that's so good," you know, but it wasn't good. So the artist that I worked with, Juan Romera, he really brought my ideas to life, and you know, Slowpokes was drawn by him, and the art is his, and the lettering is by Sean Reinhart. They did a fantastic job. I sent them the script, and I really didn't have many changes. They kind of, you know, did what they needed to do, and it looks fantastic.
Yeah, and how did you connect with them? Are they longtime friends or other avenues
No.
of?
Here's the thing that's completely strange about this is I went through Comics Experience, which is a school for people who want to write comics or people who want to draw comics. So you know, growing up, I've always wanted to be part of comics or do something with comics, but it was all art. Like it was all art based. Like every time you see a school, it's like, all right, learn how to draw. Like I can't draw, so I was always on the lookout for a school that you could write. So I found Comics Experience online like 2 years ago, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna give this a try. So I went through their class. I actually workshopped Slowpokes through their class. Got good reviews in the class. So I was like, that's kind of what made me want to make it. They have a creative services department. So if you go through them and you pay their fee or like their bundle fee, they'll find you artists. They'll help you produce the comic and help you put it all together in like kind of one thing. So they paired me up with Juan and Sean, who are part of their Comics Experience you know, bundle, and they did a great job, and I couldn't have asked for anything else.
Yeah, I mean, the art perfectly matches, I think, what you're trying to achieve. And
it's even crazier because like I did tell them, like I wrote out notes about stuff like, all right, you know, do this, but I didn't really have that many. Like they kind of just did their thing, and I was like, this is perfect. This is exactly what I've been looking for. So that's how talented they are.
yeah, and did you have like referential material, like in the style of X, Y, or Z, or?
For certain things, like, you know, the sloths, like there was one thing where like the sloth was part of it, but I'm like, oh, the sloth needs to like smile here. Like the sloth needs to do this. So like I sent a picture of that, like weird stuff like that, like maybe one of the buildings. I'm like, all right, this is kind of what I was thinking, but I kind of just want them to do their own thing and put their own creative spin on it, just because that's part of the process. But you know, it really wasn't hard. Like I gave them notes and they did their thing, and it was awesome.
Yeah. Did you were you thinking about trying to bring this to fruition other ways before you decided to go that route?
I mean, so this idea came from like years ago. I was messing around at work, and we were talking about all those crazy sci-fi movies like the Sharknado #9 or Mansquito or like the Piranhaconda where it's half piranha, half anaconda. And I was like, oh, what are they going to do next? Like sloths that become fast and kill. And like, I've always had that idea. I just didn't know like where to put it because I'd never written like a movie or anything. And like, I don't have that type of money. But when the Comics Experience came and, you know, in the class, it was like perfecting a one shot. I was like, oh, why not? I was like, this is probably the perfect place to do this because comics, like, you know, who wouldn't want to read a comic where it's like sloths going absolutely batshit on people? And I feel like within the medium, like I feel like that's a fun place you can do that. So I workshopped it in the class, and I didn't get any negative feedback. So I was very, I was like, because sometimes you just throw stuff out. I was like, let's see what they think. And everybody's like, oh, this is amazing. This is so fucking funny, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, all right, I think I got something here.
Yeah. So for a few years, was the idea just on like a shelf in the back room, or was it something that you were like
pretty much a shelf on the back room? Like, so I have like just random ideas that I'll just write down in like a notepad and things like that. And, you know, I'm a copywriter for an entertainment company, and sometimes I'll use those ideas for that, or sometimes I'll be like, oh, maybe I could use it for this. But now with the comics, now that I have found an outlet, now I'm like, all right, I think I can do it through here. And, you know, if I'm starting with Slowpokes, it's like I could either get crazier or you know, and I can go crazier than that. And just like the limits are endless, which is what I want to do.
Yeah, and it is so, to borrow from the title of this show, it is really random. So I think, you could go any direction, superhero or otherwise.
So my hope for Slowpokes, and again, things can change, like who knows. But through the Kickstarter, luckily there will be a second Slowpokes, hopefully for next year. If I can get that started. But I want to do with every Slowpoke. So the first one is kind of like my homage to blockbuster movies, those weird horror movies you see in Blockbuster or on Netflix. You're like, what is that? Like, what is Velocipaster? Like, what is this? So I want to keep continuing to do that for the future. So if I have to bring the sloth to space, I'll do it. If I need to do a Western, I'll do it. Like, just it would be like my way to do these type of movies or different genres. And I think the Slowpokes are, I think that's a fun place to do that.
Yeah. So were you particularly interested yourself in that strange and random horror genre? And is that why you decided to, okay.
Absolutely. When I was writing The Kills, I was like, if they could make this somehow, even if it's a shitty, like sci-fi movie or 30-minute movie, I don't care. I'm like, I would want to just check it out. Like this is something that I would want to see myself. So I was writing, for my own entertainment, and then luckily I was able to entertain other people while I was doing it.
Very cool. And coming to this point, had you written before for other mediums?
I have written a comic before, but I wasn't proud of it because I didn't know what I was doing. I wrote a comic about John Wayne. So I used to interview comic book creators about their Kickstarters and stuff for this place called indiereader.com, which still exists. And I would interview them about like their process, because I wanted to learn. I wanted to break in or figure out a way to break in. And through all this, like that's how I kind of learned about it. But I met like a comic publisher. I don't know if they exist anymore, but the deal wasn't great. But for me, I was like, this is my way to break in. Why not and do this? So I wrote this John Wayne comic book, and it was just okay. But I've written commercials, I've written ad campaigns, I've written all kinds of different things. I've written for UFC before, Maxim. So for me, like I love different styles of writing and just being uncomfortable, because you don't know how uncomfortable you are until you don't know how comfortable you are until you're uncomfortable. And I wanted to be like, you know what, let's try this. And if it sucks, great, but at least I tried. But then now I'm getting more and more comfortable with the style, and I'm hoping that, I get better as I go along on this comic journey, or this random comic journey, as you would say.
There you go. And I would say, I understand, and I'm not really knowledgeable about it, but I do understand that writing for comics is a lot different than writing for, writing a script for a movie or writing a book, and the format. You have to take into account the limitations of page count, and also, turning the page to have a climactic event that you're building anticipation for that page turn. So I don't know if you could speak about writing for the comic medium in particular from the perspective of having written for commercials and things like that before.
Sure. So what they teach you in class, and I hope I'm not giving too many secrets away, but like they said, every panel needs to have an action. And for that, like to have that in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, now I kind of have like the format to do this. And it also helps you when there is a page count, because you're like, all right, I got to make sure that everything makes sense. Because if one thing within the comic script is not done correctly, then the whole thing could fall apart. So what Comics Experience did, they had you create like good habits. So then when you do write comics, you have a kind of a format to work in. So you get used to that format, and then you won't, the level of failing is not as much as, if you're just randomly doing it. So they said to like, to draw an outline of what this comic is, and, write to the outline, and kind of like, write your characters first this week. And then the next week you write the outline to the story. The third week you do like the first 10 pages, but you have to follow the outline just so it's kind of like your map. And then, you just keep going from there. And it's worked so far. And I have another project coming up I'll talk to you about it online, that I'm looking offline about what it's going to be, because I want to make sure that it gets done.
This guy's building anticipation already. He's learned all the lessons.
I want to make sure I get it done, because if it didn't get done and I said something about it, and then they're like, oh, where is it? You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to mess anybody up.
Yeah.
But it's basically, just kind of setting time for yourself, setting a schedule for yourself, and setting like a format for how to create a comic. And within the 20 pages that Slowpokes is, I was able to do that fairly quickly. I was able to workshop it and get it done within, I think, a month, maybe a month and a half. And then, the hard part is just waiting for the art and waiting for everything to come back.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, you kind of alluded to it, but I guess when you're pursuing any creative endeavor, setting that time for yourself to actually do the work is like important. Did you have any setbacks or like challenges personally in pursuing the creativity?
No, I think it was a way for me to like let off steam. You know what I mean? Just kind of like, oh, this will be fun, or like this will be something funny to do. And as I kept going, nobody really stopped me nobody was like, oh, you don't do this, or like, don't do that. So I'm like, they kept encouraging it. So I think that was definitely helpful to it. I didn't really have too many creative, like say, writer's block or anything like that. I because of comics experience, I was able to map out the story. I mean, things changed here and there, but nothing where I'm like banging my head on the wall. I was having fun doing it, and I think that is what drives me, and I think that's the best way to drive something creative, because the more fun you have, I feel like the sky's the limit. You're not going to be too frustrated.
Yeah, that's good feedback. And also having action as a driving force for the story. I've written for film before, and now when I watch movies, I can see when things are like way too dialogue based. It just really loses me. So I think that's probably true. I mean, everybody has their own preference, but it's probably true across mediums that really, in terms of storytelling, in my limited experience and based on what you're saying, I think that, action really needs to drive what's happening. Otherwise it comes off as scripted.
Mm-hmm. So you're talking about movies. If you could write any movie, or I'll say a franchise, because you might have some ideas. I don't want to give them up. If you could write a franchise or show, or what would you like to write?
I'm personally interested in older Japanese tokusatsu stuff, if you know what that is. Like Power Rangers. So tokusatsu means special effects, and it specifically refers to old style non-CG effects, so camera tricks and explosions and stuff like that.
I think Power Rangers is fucking brilliant in terms of like budget and like stuff like that, because they just basically took the footage and they were like, all right, well, right around the footage that we have, like that's brilliant. And they made so many toys, and like I loved Power Rangers growing up. It's funny too. They brought somebody in on the class who worked with the Power Rangers franchise, and I was like, all right, why the fuck haven't we seen Ivan Ooze since the movie? You know what I mean? Like, where is Ivan Ooze? Like, how come we haven't seen anything? Like, because you've never seen him. Apparently, the studio owns the rights to Ivan Ooze, not the Power Rangers.
Was that Saban?
Yes.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So
I mean, I don't know if you watched, I think it was in Toys That Made Us on Netflix, but they went into Saban's ownership and how they were just scouting these old Japanese shows to like regurgitate into an American form. And it worked for Power Rangers at least. But
listen, if you're going to have explosions, you're going to have, you know what I mean? You have diverse kids and their explosions. You have comedy, you have action, you have something that, parents can put on there for their kids. And it's like, all right, this is fine. You got a good formula there. I mean, same thing with like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which I love. And, all those types of shows. Like, I feel like there's not as much of that anymore. I mean, I know that there's cartoons and things like that, but like, I feel like there needs to be there's another boom that's going to come.
There's less hero oriented besides superheroes, I think, right?
I feel like now it's more random, like the name of the podcast, more random things like, Adventure Time or, those Cartoon Network, the Steven Universe, where it's just like, all right, it's more about friendship, I feel like, than saving the day. I guess it's save the day too.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. There's some there's some essence that was there with Ninja Turtles and Power Rangers and Thundercats and Masters of the Universe and like all those old school shows that they don't have an equivalent today. I would agree to that. Yeah. So I'm interested in.
Let's get you writing some Power Rangers. Let's do it.
So I made a film. It took a very long time to do post-production on, and I wasn't, similar to you with the comic that you had done in the past, I wasn't super stoked on the end result. It was a pretty ambitious project, but the concept was to do a tokusatsu show, which is really unrealistic, but bring in dramatic realism.
That's cool. I would send it to me. I would love to see it.
I will. I'll send it to you. So yeah, I'm interested in like giant robots and using old school camera tricks and techniques in lieu of CG. So I try to
I love that
write from that perspective.
To the horror genre, because like CGI is whatever. Like I kind of like don't like CGI in horror, because like back then, like in the 80s, like with Tom Savini and everything, they made their own stuff and it looked more realistic, and it just looked, some of it you knew that like it was part of this show, but it was like a fun show. Like, Dusk Till Dawn and things like that. I actually got to meet Tom Savini, I think earlier this year. He came by my work, and I was like, "Oh shit, that's Tom Savini. That's the guy with the dick gun from
Have you ever seen Tetsuo the Iron Man? Drawing a blank on the name.
I've heard of it, but I have not seen it.
That's a must watch if you're into practical effects, I guess is what they're referred to as, and crazy Japanese horror films.
But that's awesome. I mean, how old are you?
I'm 34.
34. All right, so you got time, but like I feel like not time, but like not time. I mean, but it just, if you want something, you got to go get it, and that for me has always been my thing. I'm like, if I want it, I'm gonna go and get it by any means possible.
That's awesome.
In a nice way. I'm not going to put people over or anything.
You're going to stick your slow pokes on anybody who gets in your way.
No, not this time. Maybe one day. If the wrong people cross me, but we'll see. I'm on.
Yeah, I'm always pursuing creative stuff. So,
obviously,
I'll share with you on the sly after this is done. Something I have on the side.
Awesome. Cool.
That I'm working on now. That's in that vein of giant robots and things like that.
Very cool.
But then I thought also doing this podcast is a good way to not only motivate myself, but motivate other people, learn about tricks, learn about the creative process.
I mean, the best thing about these podcasts and like doing this for Slowpokes, everybody is way nicer than I thought. Like everybody, like I was expecting to get like rocks thrown at me for ruining comics forever. But no, everybody has been really nice, like from podcasters to interviewers to people who have written and drawn comics. People are very friendly, and I want to make sure I do the same thing where, if there is a project somebody is wanting to promote and they don't really, they don't have any followers or don't know what to do, I'll gladly do it, because I feel like everybody needs a chance, and everybody if they're willing to put in the work, then I'm willing to, promote, I'm willing to share, I'm willing to, talk whatever I need to do to get these things out there, because there's so many different creative projects, and it's like, why stick with the same 5 ideas? You know what I mean? There's got to be different stuff out there.
Beautifully said. Yeah. And I saw on your, I was scouting out your Kickstarter before we jumped on, and I saw that you were promoting some other projects that are close to being funded, or other projects that you thought were worth being funded. And I thought that was really gracious of you.
I just want to make sure that like people have been so kind to me, just kind of pay it forward. And I feel like that builds a community, that builds a network where it's like, hey, this person did really well, for me, did right by me. I want to do right by them. So I want to do the same thing.
Yeah, that's really cool. And it's also building into the concept that like there's kind of a limitless pie out there. You don't have to worry about other people encroaching and cannibalizing your opportunity. But like you said, it's a creative community, and we're all in this together.
And people worry
different
about
people find different things interesting. So present all options, right?
Yes. And people worry about like, oh, like, this person can steal my idea. This person can do this. It's like, I could, I could do the elevator pitch of slowpokes are fast and whatever, they kill people. My story is going to be different than your story. You know what I mean? Like my thing is going to be different than other people's things. I actually think that would be a good idea for an anthology where everybody gets the same premise for a story, but they do it their own way. I think that would be kind of cool.
That would be awesome. Yeah.
So maybe if people listening to this want to do that, that'd be great. But or maybe that'd be a future Slowpokes down the line where there's like an anime Slowpokes and a war hero Slowpokes. Like I don't know, but yeah, I just paying it forward and trying to do the right thing.
Yeah, that's beautiful in this day and age. I think
it's hard. I'm sure
we hear more negative news, but there's probably more positive news than negative news, right?
I mean,
you just don't hear about it.
The best freedom about the Slowpokes comic is that sky's the limit. Like I don't have to be within other people's rules about how things should be. I can do them my way, and if it goes well, great. If it doesn't go well, that's on me for me to learn and for me to take the chance. It's like, all right, I tried this and it didn't work. I think more people should have that freedom. And I want to, for this comic, I want to take the money that people are giving me to create more stuff. And, hopefully until nobody wants to read my stuff ever again, that's going to be the goal for each comic going forward.
Is there a specific genre you like, it's your dream to do? Like speaking, I don't know if it's next year or 5 years out, but like your bucket list project?
I definitely want to touch on all projects, but I would love to do something serious once, like, because everybody who reads my stuff or knows me or, is getting to know me through this thing is like, oh, he's fucking crazy, slowpoke comic guy. But if there's one, and I love that, and I love embracing it. I love, I love having the title, and I love when people send me just sloth stuff randomly, which is awesome. It's great. That means that people are responding to it. But eventually, I would love to write just something personal and serious and be like, hey, I am a goofball, but like I can tell stories too, and like here's what it would be. I'm not sure what exactly that project is, but I would love to get the chance at it. And with everything that's happening with Slowpokes, I do have like I don't know if it's an itinerary, but it's like a release schedule of like what I would like to do next. If I could follow that, hopefully I can get there to get to a serious project probably sooner than later. But I think I want to have some fun first. So sloths first, and then we'll see what happens from there.
And would you prefer to stay within the medium of comics, or do you see story writing having limitless potential for film, movie, TV?
I'll write for anything because I love a challenge, and I think from my experience writing in different mediums, whether it's journalism or copywriting or the comics or script writing or whatever, I feel like I can do it, or like at least attempt to do it where people are at least entertained. And then for the next time around, I'll be like, all right, I'm better this time around. Like you didn't throw your money away. But we'll see. I think when I first started the Slowpokes, I was like, you know what? I think whether this fails or doesn't fail, it's going to lead to something good, or it's going to lead to something where, hey, it could lead to something else that could be positive. So we'll see what happens, but I'm hoping that this leads to, I would love to write a movie. I would love to write a show. I'd love to write anything. Just, hit me up. Somebody give me the chance to do it, and I'll pitch something to you. So we'll see.
Yeah. Or at least step up to the plate to hit it out the park.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe I'll strike out a few times, but like at least I want to get the experience of pitching stuff. I'll welcome that. That'd be awesome.
And are you so the current project is a standalone issue, or is it multiple issues?
There will be multiple. So at first I had it in my head as a one shot where I was like, okay, maybe this will be something, maybe it won't. If it's not anything, then will be fine. Like, and then, maybe I'll get back to Slowpokes later. But since the success of the Kickstarter, there will be future Slowpokes going forward. I don't think I'm going to promise where it's like, oh, every year it's this, every year it's Slowpokes, every year it's this. But with each different Slowpokes, I definitely want to tell more stories with those characters and the sloths, because I think I could have a lot of fun with it before I beat the dead horse into the ground.
Do you have a favorite character? What's the karate guy's name? Karate Chris?
Karate Carlos.
Carlos.
He's definitely it's a character I definitely want to do some more stuff with, just because I have such a soft spot for that character. So there was actually going to my high school years ago, there was a kid that everybody called Karate Carlos, and I think everybody has that kid in their high school who's like obsessed with anime, like wants to do martial arts, isn't good at martial arts, but like you love him anyway. Like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, he's a nice kid. And like I wasn't per se friends with him, but like I knew him, and like I was like, oh, that kid is enjoying his life. Like that kid is punching karate boards and slap boxing people, whatever. He's enjoying the time of his life. So Karate Carlos is kind of based around that spirit, I guess. So I definitely want to do some more stuff with Karate Carlos. I do love Eden Rare, who's the scientist. I do think that there's more to be done with her. But I love all those characters, and I think by the second time around, because I'll be more comfortable with them, that I'll have even more fun with it.
And were they born out of, like, you had the original idea for Slowpokes and then you built out around that idea, or were they like somehow on your shelf too and you pulled them into the Slowpokes project?
So it came out of Slowpokes first. Like, I definitely had the idea for the sloths first, and I was like, all right, well, what is it going to be based around? And I definitely wrote a few experiences from, I mean, obviously sloths didn't kill anybody that I knew, as far as I know, but those characters are definitely based, like, with certain traits based on people I know. I've definitely borrowed names from all my friends and just combined them to make, like, London James are two of my best friends mixed together. I've taken last names from people, and again, just growing up and having those experiences and being, rowdy and you think the world is in front of you and you think that nothing can touch you, that type of thing. And then, evil sloths come and get in your way.
And did the real Karate Carlos get notification that
I have no idea. I don't even know if that was his real name. Like, everybody called him that. But like, I don't remember what his last name was.
Was his name actually Carlos?
I think I just know everybody called him that. I think that was his name. But like, no, we kind of, I feel like when you go to the high school, there's always like these characters. At least when I went to school, there were characters, and there were always people that you're like, what? Like, you grow up and you're like, how did this happen? Like, we had a story where somebody tried to steal a car in my hometown, but it was a stick shift. So they tried to put it back and they got arrested for putting the car back. So like stuff like that. But like, no, Karate Carlos, as far as I know, has not been notified of this. And then there's another character, Hurricane, that the basis for it was, I mean, his name was the basis for it, but it wasn't like his character because I didn't really know him. But this kid would call himself the Hurricane, like The Rock. Like, he would just basically be like, the Hurricane's going to score, like the Hurricane. And everybody's like, no, like, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing this? So I'm like, I have to put that in there. That'd be hilarious. But as far as I know, they do not know that their legends in our high school have been immortalized now in books.
Very cool. Another thing I wanted to ask was about, choosing Kickstarter as your platform over other platforms, and then how you just started to generate the interest in your project. Because I mean, for me, I happened upon it, and the project itself was like, whoa, this is so random and so cool. The art is great. The concept is, like I said, jumps through the screen at me. So I'm sure that just by virtue of having an awesome project, you generated a lot of interest. But I'm wondering if there's anything specific that you think you did that helped your chances to get noticed.
So the thing with Kickstarter, I picked Kickstarter because that's the, when you hear about projects and comic projects, that's the one I heard about most. Like, I definitely heard about Indiegogo, but I just thought Kickstarter was people more familiar with it. So I went that route, and I made sure to read up on it. And I had friends who had done comic projects or other projects through Kickstarter. And I was like, all right, it's probably better to pick their brain and see what they did right, what they did wrong, like what I can do to, from that. So that's why I picked Kickstarter. In terms of promotion for it, I have no experience doing promotion, and I got really, really lucky in terms of just being surrounded by people that I trust and people that that are going to have fun coming up with ideas or putting stuff together. I mean, I definitely use Instagram and Twitter, and like I'm sorry for annoying people. I'm sure people, I'm like, oh, Slowpokes, Slowpokes, here's hashtag, use Slowpokes. And I'm just throwing it in people's face. I'm sure people got annoyed by that. But it did well. But again, working with people who I know that I trust, like the video that you see when you go on the Kickstarter is made by my friend. Her name is Kristen Greco, and she works for Nickelodeon. So I'm like, well, she'll do a great job with it. And she was like, oh, I'm on board. I'm happy to help you with this. And then I have like friends who are artists, like the guy who did the poster, his name was Vertebrae 33. He has a huge following. He does a lot of t-shirts and art. He just got stuff done for Hot Topic with Rick and Morty and Star Wars, The Mandalorian. So I'm like, all right, well, that's a good place to start there. And I'm friends with him. So, hopefully he'll be nice about this. And then, another artist, Brian DeNono, he did my logo, and I've known him for a long time. He's like, yeah, I'll do that for you. So it's really just good faith. Like I've been very lucky to have people that, I'm lucky I was nice to, because they were like, oh yeah, we'll help you with this. No problem. But definitely I made a plan. So if people are doing Kickstarter, I would say to make a plan in terms of like your rollout. So like 1 week, we had a theme song. We had a Slowpokes theme song, which I could send you, or you could play for the podcast, whatever. By Blake Rains, and again, a friend of mine who did music for Universal Music Group, where I knew him forever, and I was like, "Oh, you want to do a song with me?" He's like, "Oh, hell yeah, let's do it." And he has a studio in his house, and at first I was like, "We'll make a song, but like it'll just be fun." And then he made like a real like hit. Like I was like, "Oh my god!" Like I was like, "This is a real song. Like this is really good. It's not just me like spouting lyrics or anything. Like he could sing really well." And he helped me write it. He wrote most of it. But it's just good faith and just rolling things out. And I always wanted to make sure with my comic to put out stuff that like I would want to see. Because like if you're looking at a Kickstarter project and they wrote a song, you're like, I'm curious what the song is. And especially if it's sloths killing people. It's like, what is this going to sound like? So I need to do this. Or the video or t-shirts and things like that. I just wanted to put out stuff that like I would want to see or I would want to get. In terms of Kickstarter, because I know people want to figure out how to merchandise themselves, but that's a tough part. But just I would say focus on what you would want to see.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good rule of thumb, right? If you don't want it, other people probably won't either. Exactly.
Like I felt weary because everybody's like, oh, you should do stretch goals, but I'm like, I think I got everything I need. But I do think for the next Slowpokes Kickstarter, whenever that is, I think stretch goals and figuring out, what more merch we can do. I think that'd be good. I want to go as ridiculous as possible because I'm like, you got to stand out. You got to stand out when there's a million Kickstarter projects and, people only have so much money to give.
Yeah. And I mean, you already have a following based on the first one and sky's the limit at that point, right?
Yeah. I've gotten orders from Malaysia today. I got one from Denmark and Canada and all over the US, Croatia. And I'm like, how did they find this? 2, like, I don't want to let them down. And 3, it's like, man, just to know that people outside of my friend list or my friend bubble want to check it out. That to me is really cool. And I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Until I get cursed out in Croatian, you know what I mean? But
yeah. That's something to aspire to, I think, being cursed out.
I hope, I definitely hope people enjoy it. As long as people have fun, I'm cool with it. But like, I kind of want those negative, like the people who are like, sloths shouldn't be fast. Like, this is too violent. Like, I want stuff like that. That'd be great.
Do you think those people it's like a disconnect? Like they just don't get it? Or are they being trolls or like what's going on there?
I don't know. Some lady really got mad about that. So I feel like it fucked up her day. Like I feel like because usually you could just be like, oh, that's stupid. I don't want to, I won't comment on it, whatever. Because that's usually my thing when I see something like, I don't like that, but whatever. But this lady took the time.
Took it upon herself.
Yeah, took it upon herself to write a comment, like a negative comment, like, Like, this is a bizarre idea. Like, why would you do this? And it's like, you know, what if I wrote underneath and I was like, I'm done with comics forever. I retired. The Slowpokes isn't coming out just because of this one lady's comment. That's funny to me. I want people to react positively or negatively. I think people are either going to love it or hate it, and I'm cool with that. That's what the Slowpokes experience is all about.
Beautiful. And so the comic's going to be released, or the Kickstarter is going to like conclude right at or on Halloween?
Yep, 12/01 on Halloween. The Kickstarter will be done, and if you pledged, you will get the digital version on Halloween as soon as I can put it out. Once the Kickstarter is over, I'll be taking, so people who got posters and T-shirts and things like that, I'll be doing a survey to make sure I get everybody's sizes, because I know some Kickstarters do like, oh, medium, large, whatever. Like, I want to make sure everybody has a shirt or whatever they ordered and it fits, and it's like in a good quality thing, and not, I don't want people wearing crop tops with Slowpokes and their bellies are hanging out. I don't want that. So after I do have the copies printed, so I printed 200 to start, and now I'm past the 200 mark. So I had to order another.
Congratulations. 200.
Yeah. So those are coming. So once the Kickstarter is over, I will immediately begin work on personally mailing out all these things to all over the world. And
so you didn't use a fulfillment service. Here's
the thing, and maybe because I'm stupid, I didn't know that those existed. Like, somebody told me today, they're like, oh, when you're doing this, like, how are you doing this? I was like, oh, I was just going to mail it out. They're like, what? I was like, yeah, you could use a fulfillment service. I was like, what's that? And they sent me the link, and I'll probably use that for the next one. But I think with 300 backers or however many it is right now, not all of those were physical copies. So I think I can do that over the course of a few weeks and with help from family, friends, and loved ones who I will give them liquor or something.
Your love is enough.
My love is enough. Yes. But it's also weird too, because people are asking for like my signature, and I don't have a signature. So I got to figure out what that looks like too. So it's very, very interesting, and I'm very excited to see how all this goes. And I'm sure I fucked something up on the way. So we'll see what that is. Hopefully it's not the shipping, but we'll find out.
Yeah. I mean, I've done, printed shirts before and stuff too. And there's a sense of ownership when you have to ship them out, like receive them and then reship them. You get to look at the quality and make sure everything is done to your liking before you pass them on to somebody. So even with the fulfillment services there, I can imagine that part of me would want to do it myself, even though
I want to
cumbersome.
I want to put love in everything I do. And with this, I want to make sure that everything gets to where it needs to be. And there's no hiccups. And if there are hiccups, like, I want to make sure to take care of it personally. Because people are putting their trust in me. They gave me money to give them an experience that hopefully nobody else can give. And that's a lot of pressure. And I want to make sure that I can do that, because if I want to do, if I'm doing these future Kickstarters, I need to have that trust, because it's like, oh, he didn't fuck me over. Like, he didn't charge $800 for a shirt. He didn't do all these crazy things to just rip me off and take my money. Like, I want to make sure that people enjoy it and they have a good experience doing it, and that they come back for more.
Yeah. So how long was it, from start to finish, and at what point during that timeline did you decide on the Kickstarter? I mean, because I imagine the timing is to have it be released on Halloween was smart. I think it, fits very well with the comic itself. So, like, what was that full timeline for you?
So last year around this time, I was taking the classes, and I was finishing up the courses. And then I think in December, they gave me the final notes of like what they like, what they don't like. So from then, and there weren't that many notes or like negative notes. And I was like, oh, I think I can do this now. So I reached out to them, and I was like, I would love to do the project. I would love to put my money towards making this happen. Can we do it? And they're like, yep, let's do it. It was originally supposed to come out, I think, in June, like in summer, but COVID COVID kind of pushed things back. And then once I was getting more and more pieces of it, I was like, all right, I could put a Kickstarter together. It's going to get done before Halloween. Then I think Halloween would be a perfect time to do this. And I just thought to myself, I was like, how many Halloween comics or horror comics could there be? And there are some, but I felt like it would stand out within that season, because I feel like in June or July, I think it may have hit, but I don't think it would have hit as hard as in Halloween season.
Yeah,
COVID, I think, helped, and it's messed up to say, because everybody's inside, they want entertainment, they've watched all of Netflix, they've watched every episode of Cobra Kai already, you know what I mean? Like, I felt like when that came out, it shocked, it surprised people, and it was something that you could have fun with.
And I think it's probably like analogous existential threat that people totally don't expect to happen,
Yeah.
So I think there's some relation there too.
It's funny because in the horror genre, there's everything could kill you. You know what I mean? There's a movie called Deathbed where a bed will kill you, or you know what I mean? And I felt like with sloths, it's obviously if sloths are slow and they kill you, I think that's pretty funny too. But I feel like you needed to put the speed to add to the level of violence and the level of just, you can't have a million kills of people just walking into the claws. You know what I mean?
Although that's a challenge to really stretch your creative muscle.
Well, maybe that's like Slowpoke's 10. They go back to being slow, but they're still murderous. Maybe that's what you got to do. But there wasn't anything with sloths, so I was like, I gotta do it because there's nothing else here. It's stupid, it's ridiculous, and it's fun. But it hasn't been done yet. So I got to get on board before somebody else comes up with the idea.
And what else is in your diet for consuming creative things? You mentioned that you're super into those crazy and nonsensical horror films. Is there anything else that is defines you as a consumer of media? I
mean, I love horror movies. I love comics. I love just anything with a good story. Because my mom, how I always wanted to picture my writing style was that he's smart. He just chooses to write in trash mediums, I guess. Right there. So my mom would take me as a kid to the ballet and to plays and Broadway and things like that. And she's like, why? Why does this, why do you got to do it this way? What do you got to do? But my gauge is, if my parents think it's a bad idea, it's probably a good one. It's probably a good one. But I love everything. I mean, from musicals to Broadway to, Japanese shows. We're going through the Studio Ghibli movies, and those are pretty interesting and fun. I would love to just do different mediums of entertainment, but I just think, we're watching Netflix. We've just watched Kingdom, the Korean zombie movie, which the Korean zombie show, which is pretty good.
What do you like about the Ghibli movies?
I just like the animation style. Obviously, is really cool, but it's like a calm watch. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh my God, this bomb's going off and we gotta figure it out. It's just calm. There's a story, and it's very simply done. I mean, the thing about the Studio Ghibli movies, and I might get heat for this, but they're very long. I feel like they're maybe a half hour too long. I feel like they figure out what happens and then they just go on for another 30, 40 minutes. And you're like, all right, didn't they get what they needed to get? Definitely stand-up comedy. Love that the Eric Andre show is back. I love that. Just anything entertainment that just piques interest. I mean, I feel like it's an entertainer's market right now. I feel like there's so many niches and genres that to create in that you can find your audience, not in a traditional way.
Yeah. Do you read any manga or have a favorite anime?
So anime, I do like Death Note. Death Note probably is my favorite anime.
Classic.
Yes. The thing with anime is I know there's so much of it, and I know that there's a lot of good ones out there. I just need to, take the time to sit down and watch it. Death Note took my attention because I was off on a holiday break, and I was like, you know what? I've heard this show's good. Let me get into it. And I just finished the whole thing. So
you watched it recently then?
Maybe 2 years ago.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. But the fact that they made William Dafoe the Shinigami is my favorite thing. That is because that guy looks exactly like that.
Oh, so you watched the live action too?
I didn't see the movie yet, but I didn't hear it was very good. But the fact that they casted William Dafoe, and I was like, oh, that's perfect casting. Like somebody was just like, yep, that guy looks like William Dafoe.
No makeup needed.
Yeah, no, I was like, yeah, just come here, wear some black, and you're good.
Cool. And then let's see. Another question I had was about after Kickstarter. You have this comic. You might have extra prints. Like, what do you do after post Kickstarter with the finished product?
So after the Kickstarter is done, I'll probably do an Etsy or like one of those type of things. Just like if people missed the Kickstarter, people want to check it out. If people are like, oh, this thing's really cool, and you missed the Kickstarter, I will give a chance for people to buy the digital version. I will have some physical copies left, hopefully by the end of the Kickstarter. But if people want it, I'll give it to them. You know what I mean? Like if people want, if I can get another 200 or 250 or whatever, however the number is, I will make sure to get them that. If I have to do it just digital, then I think that's okay too.
You could probably do a Kickstarter too for a reprint. I think I've seen that before.
Yeah,
right?
Maybe. I think with Slowpokes 2, as part of one of my things that you get Slowpokes 1 and Slowpokes 2. So I might do another printing around then anyway. But if people want it, I'll give it to them. And I'll go to whatever I need to do to get it to them.
Yeah. And you've been running the podcast route, doing a lot of interviews, and certainly making sure that you post to your social media and stuff. Have you set time aside every day? Considering that I think you're working a quote unquote normal job, but do you have to set time aside every day to tackle this project and maintaining the Kickstarter, or how do you manage that?
So luckily the comic is done, so I don't have to worry about that. And printing, I made sure I get that figured out. It is tough. I made sure to take off this whole week, just to make sure that I'm able to do the interviews and to put it out there. But I do set aside time just to make sure that I can give it my full attention. Luckily, I haven't been out, up until 12 or 1 in the morning doing anything or anything like that. I maintain a schedule. But I will say this for Kickstarters, if you're doing them, don't wait for them to come to you. You have to go to them. You know what I mean? You have to go to websites, people that might be interested in you. I've written tons of emails for people to interview me for Slowpokes. And now I'm actually getting it back where people want to interview me, which is great, because I'm like, oh, somebody actually saw this thing, I did, which is cool. So if you want something, you got to go get it and just reach out to people, obviously in a nice way, not in a, hey, you deserve to look at me. You know what I mean? I don't want people to do that.
Interview me or feel the wrath of Slowpokes.
Exactly. So you'll find your audience. You'll find people that are interested in what you do, and look at the sites that you like and the people or the genres you're into, and I think that'll definitely help. I mean, blending horror, comedy, and sloths definitely helped in terms of like I could be interviewed for comic websites, I could be interviewed for horror websites. If the Sloth Foundation wants to interview me, I'll do it. I don't think they want anything to do with me. But it's funny because I actually spiritually adopted 2 sloths from the Costa Rica Sloth Foundation.
I saw that. Congratulations.
Yes. I'm a sloth dad. Yes. I actually went to my mom and as a cruel joke, and I was like, oh, I got to tell you something. I'm a dad. And she was like, what? Like, what are you doing? I was like, a sloth dad. She's like, oh, you're a piece of shit.
How does she feel about the project as a whole? You commented about her bringing you to the opera and stuff like that.
My parents I love my parents. They've always done right by me, but they do not understand anything about any of this stuff. They're like, as long as you're happy, like we're happy, that's cool. But I think it definitely shocked them and surprised them that I was doing this. And I think they're shocked and surprised that it's made, I'm going to be making a profit on this too, which is like a double whammy for them. But I mean, they're proud, and they're like, we're proud that you went after your dream. Cause I remember I talked to my dad about I asked him for the loan for the comic project. I was going to pay him back, but I was like, all right, if I could do the loan and then I'll pay it back in installments, like 2 installments or 3 installments. And he's like, why do you want to do this? I was like, and he like hesitated. And I was like, you know what? I'll just do it myself. I don't need to talk to anybody and just figure it out. And then now when I told him what the comic was about, he's like, okay. He's like, this is cool. Now he has the comic, and he's like, my dad's Dominican, so he goes, Steven, this is amazing. And it's even funnier because he put so as one of the tiers for Kickstarter, I put as the last tier, you can be killed by slowpokes in the next one for $152. So he didn't even look at it. He was just like, all right, I'll give the maximum, to support your dream. And I told him, so I'm going to kill my dad in the next version of slowpokes. And I told him, I was like, I can't wait to kill you. And he had no idea what I was talking about.
I'm sure you had to like backpedal a little bit and talk yourself out of that one.
Oh, I can't wait to kill him in this. Like it's like all the stuff from like over, growing up and like being grounded and stuff like that. It's like, oh, now I'm gonna get it back.
So do you have your means figured out already? Did you save the most gruesome?
No, I might save the most gruesome one for him. I think that would be great, and I can't wait to show him the art too, which would be fantastic. But he's seen a physical copy, so he's seen a physical copy. He's thumbed through it. He's seen the art for it. I don't know if he'll actually like read it cover to cover, but like now that it's a physical item, he's like, all right, this is a real thing. This is awesome. And then he's seeing the success of the Kickstarter. He's like, oh, you might have something here.
Yeah. Probably not much more feels better than that. Like have your dad, who might not understand your random, see that other people understand your random.
Oh, I can't wait. Like I can't wait to share with them the negative comment, because I wonder what they will do. I don't know if they'll be like, well, to hell with you for doing that. That's my son. You know what I mean? That type of thing. But we'll see what happens. But they've been good about it, and they've been supportive, but they don't understand why I'm doing this. And I don't understand why I'm doing it either. I feel like with certain things, it's like, let's see how far you can go. Like Ferris Bueller.
Yeah, and you've certainly been compelled, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome.
I mean, it's crazy. So I had to get killed by a slowpoke. I had 15 slots for that, and I was like, all right, it's a high ticket item. I don't know who's going to buy this, but I think it'll be a cool thing if somebody does it. It would help the Kickstarter if people want to do it. And all 15 got sold out. At first, it was just people that I knew, and I was like, all right, that's funny. That's funny. And then after a while, I'm like, oh wait, there's like more people that like I don't know, like from different countries who are all in on this. And I have to kill them. Get killed. Yes, I don't even know them, and I have to kill them. You know what I mean? It's just a tough thing.
Is it going to be hard to fit 15 people into the?
No,
it's for the next issue, or
for the next issue. Yes.
Yeah.
So the next issue, I'm looking at doing it. So this one's 20 pages plus an extra 5-page story if you get the physical edition. So the next one I'm looking at doing like 32 pages, maybe a little bit longer. So that way I can, have more fun with it, fit everybody in, but not like jam everybody in. We're like, oh shit, I got to kill this guy for this or this. Make sure make sure it goes in for the story, and make sure people are happy with it.
Yeah. That's awesome.
But I think going forward with Kickstarters, if I could kill people in the next one, then I think I'm good. I think people will respond to that, which is
and it's a cool strategic decision, because you're kind of, relaying your current Kickstarter into the next one, right?
Yeah.
Because this is for issue 1. People will be killed in issue 2, and that'll help in the promotion of the subsequent one.
Yes, until I'm done, and there's like Slowpokes 50 or whatever it is.
So in Slowpokes 2, how much, if you make the same stretch goal and have this award of being killed, how many would you allot? Is 15 going to be too much of a challenge, or are you going to like make it 30 and increase it?
I think 15 is probably I think that's a good way to go, because for the next one, I have an idea of kind of what's going to happen. And there's opportunities for multiple characters, to be part of this. Maybe not the main cast, obviously, but they can definitely, I don't think it'll hurt from the story. I think it'll be an added thing. And especially if people are reading, are like, oh, that's me getting a sloth taken out my eyes, and stuff like that.
Yeah. And do you have a story arc that's planned over like a few issues? Is there I guess what I'm asking, do you know where you're going to go for 10 issues and you have a point where you could end it at the end of 10, or?
I definitely want to just keep it going. I have an idea of where things are going, but I think not knowing where the car will leave me is a lot more fun, because I'm like, oh, I can do whatever I want. Like, that's the best thing about it. Like, if I want to make it a Western, I can make it a Western. If I want robots, if I want robo sloths, I can make robo sloths. Like, it could be as ridiculous and crazy. But I definitely just want to keep upping the ante with every issue where people are entertained and like, well, this one was fucking crazy. Well, let's check this one out too.
Very good. Well, I think that's not a terrible place to end, unless you have something else you'd like to add or ask or chat about.
No, you're doing a great job. This is a good podcast. You're a very good interviewer. And it's awesome to talk to people who are like-minded and have, are not very stiff about ideas and random things. And I think that's a very cool thing. And I definitely am looking forward to listening to more of these podcasts going forward.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I just started, but I felt compelled among my other projects to chat with like-minded people and realize that just the fact that we're not like-minded, we could find some commonality in that.
I might have a brain injury of some sort. I don't know.
I think the same thing. But yeah, I mean, we could find commonality in being random in different ways. And I like hearing about people's creative endeavors and the process and bringing things from just an idea. Slowpokes was an idea you had, said like 5 years ago or so on your back shelf.
Yeah, just in my brain. Two of my favorite things is one of my bosses told me, he's like, I always want to be in meetings with you, because he's like, I don't know what you're gonna do. Like, I don't think he's like I don't know what you're gonna say. I don't know what you're gonna do. I don't know where your ideas are gonna go. Like, he's like, and I'm so entertained by that. And then my proofreader or copy editor, she told me, she just texted me once. She goes, "How does your brain work? Like, how did you get there?" So we'll see. I'm hoping that this is a good thing and not like, oh, I need to see a doctor about it. But
ride the wave while you can.
Ride the wave. But I think, like, if you have an idea and you're excited about it, somebody else will be excited about it too.
That's beautifully said. And I think that resonates with a lot of people who have a lot of random ideas.
Do it. You got to do it. Because there's so many things. Just imagine the people who don't do these things or don't take the step forward. But just by taking the step forward, you're almost there. Like, you're doing it. Like, why not keep going? Why not keep going forward? But it is tough. And I know, I definitely had a lot of doubt going into this. I'm like, well, this could be a colossal failure. Like, I could lose a good amount of money on this. And this might be my exit from comics, like my entrance and exit at the same time. And I'm still, I think everybody has that in them. I'm very interested to see what people think about it, because I don't know what that could lead to. I feel like, the right person gets in the right hands, maybe something good could come of it. But it's very exciting and it's very cool. And I hope to hear what you think as well.
I'm looking forward to checking it out. Yeah, I think it's awesome that, you said that you had doubts, but for the most part, you sound very optimistic, and you didn't have writer's block, and you didn't have a lot of challenges that other people run into. So it sounds like maybe I'll put some words in your mouth and you could recalibrate them as necessary. But it sounded like the hardest part for you is just to like do it and get over the doubt that it might fail. And once you started doing it, you've hit the ground running, and you've been running ever since.
Exactly. That is the toughest part about being in writing, is that, like, you're like, oh, I'll get to it later, or I'll get to it another time, or I'll do something else, or, and then you wasted all this time. Like, what if I died tomorrow or something like that? Like, and I had an idea and it didn't get made. Like, that to me is the worst. I remember, I'm a big fan of like those motivational podcasts. And, there was somebody that said, like, and again, this could be morbid, and I don't want people to think of it as morbid, but like, if let's say you were going to die tomorrow, you die empty, which means anything that you wanted to do or like had an inkling of I need to do this, get it done now. Because if say something happened to you tomorrow and you can't do it, like you don't want to have that regret. You don't want to have those last seconds of your life where you're just like, oh shit, I should have put Slowpokes out. So and that's I think is what's driving me forward about my ideas, because I want to have crazy ideas and I want to have fun and I want people to have fun, and you know I feel like that could be a fun sandbox to play in.
Yeah, and if you sat on Slowpokes and it kind of festered.
I have no idea how that would, if I didn't take comics experience, if I didn't, put my foot forward, like, I don't know where that would be. That would probably just be stuck in a notebook somewhere or stuck somewhere, or, randomly I would have pitched it as something, maybe for a commercial or something. And it just, and I looked at with death stare. So, I think, sometimes it's all about timing too, but I think, you definitely, like, if you want something, you got to go get it. Don't wait.
Where do you think you would be like right now this year with COVID without Slowpokes?
I'm happy in my regular life. Like, I love my job. I love my girlfriend. I love, my friends and family. But, I always want to have a challenge. I want to have something where, even if I fail, like, it's a learning experience. Like, and I think that's something that writers or artists or, whatever you're doing, people fear failure, but failure is learning. Like, you have to fail, you have to mess up to get to where you need to be. And I welcome that. And I think if you welcome failure, you have a better chance of succeeding because you're not afraid.
Yeah,
and also, wouldn't the headlines be hilarious? It's like, Steve Urena failed because Slowpokes was a fucking disaster. Like, I think that's funny. I think that's really funny. That could be used for something else. Please, have a sloth, please kill. I'm looking forward to the reviews because I want to hear, as much as I don't want to see like, oh, this sucks and like I hate this. I do want to see. I kind of want to see it too because it's a car crash. Like, you gotta see where it's gonna go.
I don't imagine. I mean, it already seems that the content drove you to the point where you're having a successfully funded Kickstarter, and I don't imagine that content leading to anything other than success. It's so like the way it's coming together and what you've presented through Kickstarter just shows a really cool product.
I also thought, I was like, well, it's just all the art. The art is selling this whole thing. Like, it's all one stuff. It's like the writing.
It's based on the story, based on the concept,
yes, that
based on your random, my friend.
That is true. There it is. But I was like, everybody's like, oh man, this is so great. I was like, that nobody's read it yet. I was like, that could be the downfall. But no, I'm loving everything about it, and it's great, and it's definitely a very positive thing during all this. And I look forward to taking that money and making other stuff, because they gave me the keys to the kingdom now. And now it's like, well, if I can get away with fast sloths, I can get away with anything. So why not?
Awesome. Well, very, very good to meet you, and congratulations already. I think in your Kickstarter profile, it wrote aspiring comic book writer, but looks like you have already succeeded at that. So on to the next goal.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because there are people who have written comics that I admire very much, and they bought it. And I'm like, all right, we'll see what happens from this. But it's funny when everybody's like, I want to win a Ringo Award. I want to win this. It's like, I just want to make comics. Like, I just want to make fun stuff. And, whether comics leads to a show or whether comics leads to a movie or anything, not Slowpokes, just me writing and having fun.
Right.
I just want to do that. I just want to have fun.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat for sure.
Yeah. But I feel like when you do have fun, that's how people take notice. And you're having fun in this podcast. And I can tell, and I'm like, this is definitely one of the best podcasts I've done, because you listen, because I talk too much all the time, and you're good with your questions and you do your research, which is awesome. So I think that you already have a leg up on people.
I appreciate that. I didn't listen to the other podcasts you were on because I didn't want to go in with preconceived notions, and that's kind of my approach things. And
I've been very lucky that the podcasts that I've done, they've all been different. Like, I was kind of scared that it would be the same questions and it would be this and it would be that, but everybody has their own style. And I think that's really cool. And that's also given me so many new podcasts to listen to, because I'm like, shit, I got so many good podcasts to listen to now.
That's good. Yeah, I was nervous myself. Like, I know he's been on a couple podcasts. I hope I'm not being redundant or, making him regurgitate the same information. So
no, this is definitely.
I'm glad.
I'd also treat every podcast, and I think this is good for Kickstarters too. Every podcast should have different pieces of information that you're talking about, just because you want to give people who are, listening to each and every one of these podcasts, if there are, people doing that, at least for me. They give you something to bite into. So then you have something new that you're giving to people who are your fans or people that are, are supporters of you. So I want to make sure I do that.
Well, I think you did that here today.
Oh yeah.
Well, thank you again for
problem
being on the podcast. What's Your Random with me?
Cool.
If you have any friends or family who want to join me and talk about their random, they're more than welcome.
I might have some people for you.
Yeah, and you're always welcome back. You are. I mean, I didn't want to start off the podcast and set the bar too high, but you're pretty much my first guest.
That's awesome. Well, to put it all on me is quite the pressure.
So now that we're ending, I figure I'd let you know.
Well, thank you. That means a lot, and I don't know what to say, because I mean, there's so many people in the world, and you chose Slowpoke. So this might be the end for you, but no, I appreciate it.
I'm willing to ride that ship with you. I think you got an awesome. You're on an awesome project. All right, thank you again.